All right. Sorry, it took a little while on YouTube. Good morning. It is Monday, August 10th. I believe it is August 10th. It is a beautiful, sunny, supposedly probably going to be warm day outside. Thanks for tuning in for just a minute. Hope you're having a good Monday starting off the week. Just fine. Honestly, we're going to jump into Psalm 88 here in just a minute. And if I had my choice of Psalms to start a week, this isn't where I would start. I'm just going to be honest in the very beginning. I wouldn't start at Psalm 8. Usually want to start Monday on a high note, and we understand that that doesn't always happen. That's not the way it always goes. But Psalm 88 is actually at times been referred to as the dark night of the soul. You say, oh, great. That's exactly how I want to start off my Monday. Well, it just kind of is where we land as we go through. As we go through, and so it's kind of the deal. So, what's going on here is there's a man by the name of Korah who's been sick since he was very young, but has constantly prayed to God for him to do something, to work in him, to heal him, but that prayer hasn't been answered, and he's somewhat frustrated by that, but he continues to go back to God. At the end of verse 18, it says, Lover and friend hast thou put far from me, and mine acquaintance into darkness. This is one of those Psalms that doesn't have a nice, clean ending to it where it ends on a high note and everything's great. We also have to understand that Old Testament believers didn't have the same grasp on the reality that God reigns on both the good and the evil. There's a story told of a man by the name of John Hooper back in the 1500s who was a preacher who was condemned to die. He was in prison for some time, then he was burned at the stake for preaching the truth. And a few years prior to his execution, he actually sent a letter to his wife telling her to read and reread Psalm 88. And in that, he said it was his prayer of a man, that this was a prayer of a man who, and I'm going to read his words, who was brought into extreme anguish and misery, and being vexed with adversaries and persecutions, saw nothing but death and hell. And although he felt in himself that he had not only man, but also God angry toward him, yet he by prayer humbly resorted unto God as the only port of consolation, and in the midst of his desperate state of trouble, put the hope of his salvation in him, whom he felt his enemy. I think the psalmist had the same feeling that Job did, that he was going through lots of pain and anguish and didn't understand why. And even after he'd searched his life, couldn't find the answer to the reason why. And he knew, Hooper, who lived in the 1500s, knew that his family would not understand why his prayers had not been answered and why freedom from his struggles had not been given. But he also understood that sometimes events in our life, and this is what we need to understand as well, sometimes events in our life are clouded on this side of heaven, that life is messy. And sometimes things happen that don't add up in my mind or don't add up in your mind. However, like the psalmist here, we continue to believe in an all powerful God. We continue to believe that God, at any time and at any moment, could do whatever he needed to do. The struggle for us is oftentimes when we feel like we need to tell God what he ought to do. And in reality, that might be our problem. At the end of it, the problem may not be that God hasn't acted the way that we think he should or that we wish he would, but it's we've gotten in our mind that somehow we should be able to tell God how it ought to be or how it ought to go. We always have to remember we have a very limited view of this life. Pain and suffering is not enjoyable at all. None of it is. But we still trust in a good, all-powerful God to do what is right, even in our suffering. And I know this one day, he's made a promise. One day, that'll all go away. And one day, everything that's wrong will be made right. And every hurt you experience will be taken away. And those things for eternity won't even be in your mind. So guess what? We keep trusting, we keep praying, we keep going. Hooper even says the only consolation that he had is that he could just keep taking it back to God. keep taking it back to God. It's not something we have to bear alone. So in those times of struggle, even when it doesn't seem like the answer to prayer is there, just keep going back to God. Keep taking it back to God because He's listening and He does care. Hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.